Hey, good morning and welcome to the fourth hour of the Greg Belfrage Show. It's great to have you along this morning. Thanks so much for letting me join you, and especially I enjoy the fourth hour. These it's a little more intimate. I'm out of the studio and I'm speaking. My you've got my complete concentration, and I love seeing your comments. Jeannie is saying good morning. Good morning, Jeannie. It's great to have all of you here. I think one of the big stories this morning is the polls. The polls, the pollsters, how they were wrong, how they screwed up the election. So let's start with the predictions coming from Iowa, and this is Ann Selzer reviewing her data. She had, she had a poll showing Kamala Harris ahead in Iowa. And of course, Donald Trump wound up winning Iowa pretty significantly. So Donald Trump had a pretty significant win in Iowa. And this pollster Ann Selzer got it wrong. And we got to roll some of the clips because the media, they were treating this is Kamala Harris is ahead in Heartland, Iowa. Oh, she's ahead in Iowa. And the media reactions to this, it's just absolutely incredible. So I want to share this video from Fox News. I want to refresh this first, make sure we get the beginning of the video, and then it'll roll here for you. But this is pretty incredible.
This is that poll, and it is a shock result. It shows Kamala Harris ahead of Donald Trump by 3 points in Iowa. And the reason this is consequential to our psyche is that if this is
consequential to our psyche, ladies and gentlemen.
If this is accurate, this implies that Harris might be winning Iowa.
Yeah. Very proud.
The view.
Showing that Harris is leading, and I know at times we don't know what these polls mean, but that definitely can't mean a bad thing for her, whereas it could for him.
This pollster
has been right. Yeah.
So,
she's always right.
You said at the time, a canary in the coal mine. A lot of people Saturday night were saying the same thing. Canary in the coal mine.
And this just goes on and
the
on.
Des Moines Register poll. If you didn't see it, of course, it kind of makes your jaw go to the floor. This is a pollster who has an incredibly solid track record and an entire career of excellence.
Yeah, and she was wrong. And she was absolutely. And now she's reviewing her data to try to determine why she was so wrong. What have I told you about polls? Don't believe them. Don't believe them. There was no incredibly accurate poll. None of them's out there. These so-called Nostradamus of polls. Alan Lichtman. There were stories involving him. I was a little taken aback by some of his comments as he was talking about the polls. There were some stories on this. This is the one I wanted to share first. This is from USA Today. I'm gonna roll this back to the beginning. I think it was getting late into the evening that he does a live stream like this. So he's doing a live stream. And he had predicted that Kamala Harris was going to win. He has the indicators, and these are the key indicators, and Kamala Harris is going to win. And he sat there, and as the evening went on, it became really clear to him Kamala Harris was not going to win. And so he says during the last hour of his broadcast, he's apparently doing this with his son, and it was his son who said, I think she lost. And Lichtman said, I do too. Place both hands to his temple. Something ridiculous would have to happen. I'm still looking for a Pennsylvania miracle, but I don't think we're going to have it. And he's right. And they talked about what people were saying. But he said the math doesn't work. The numbers don't lie. And then his son was also in disbelief. I can't believe it. I'm kind of in shock right now. And Lichtman said, yeah, it's hard to believe. He was so distraught by this. Now, keep in mind, here's the thing. If you want, I mean, when we talk about polling, all right, and somebody's analyzing polling, do you not want somebody who is viewing all of this data dispassionately? In other words, not letting their emotions get into it. Lichtman was concerned about where the country was going and what lies ahead for the country if Donald Trump were to win. This is what Lichtman is saying. And I thought when I saw that, I thought, brother, you may be the so-called polling Nostradamus as far as the legacy media is concerned. But man, as far as I'm concerned, you're a clown. Your emotions are what's driving the polling. And then you are finding data that supports what you emotionally want to happen. It's just absolutely incredible. So now Alan Lichtman is getting into it with Nate Silver because Nate Silver, he said, unlike Nate Silver, who will try to squirm out of why he didn't see the election coming, I admit that I was wrong. He wrote this on X. I admit that I was wrong. Okay, I'll give him credit for that. I think having the ability to admit when you're wrong, I appreciate that. So he's admitting he's wrong, and he said he will assess the election and the keys in an upcoming on-live show. In fact, that's coming up tonight. He does like I do, he does a live YouTube show. So coming up tonight, he's going to explain what happened and where he's going to reassess everything. But man, his heart was in the race. His heart was in it. So you start looking at data. Again, don't you want people, if they're in the data business, don't you want people examining the data and keeping their emotions out of it? And we just don't see that happening. It's one of the reasons why I've told you, we talked about it on the air, disregard the polls and the pollsters. That, get out there and cast your ballot. And whatever, are you one that actually follows these polls very closely? I would love to hear from you. Do you follow the polls closely? I look at them, and I have often said on the air, polls are out. I was only sharing those stories generally when they were trending. Left to my own devices, I would not even mention it at all because I just thought the polls are irrelevant. I don't trust the legacy media. Why would I trust the legacy media then who's joining with their partners and producing a poll? Why would I trust them? I don't. I absolutely don't. And these other folks, again, some have better records than others. My advice to you is stop watching the polls. Just go out and vote. We live in a society where we want everything now. We want everything right now. And we really have been conditioned that way, I think. I mean, everything's quick. Food is fast. Everything's fast. You want to get everything as fast as you can. We're just rush. We have no patience. We don't want to wait. When it comes to elections, just wait. Just wait. Don't look at the polls. Don't get your hopes up. Don't get your, don't let the polls to depress you. Don't ever not vote because of the polls. I'm always kind of blown away when I hear that. People talking about, the polls are up and my vote doesn't matter. I think about that and I thought, let's assume my vote doesn't matter. I don't believe that to be the case, but let's assume my vote doesn't matter. Okay, my vote doesn't matter. I'd go vote. I would go and vote anyway. I really would. I would go and vote anyway. I just don't get that. Well, my vote doesn't matter. And it's why I encouraged you. So, please get out and vote. And I mean this very sincerely. I know that you and I may disagree about some things. I think that's the case with all of us, is that we disagree about things. That's all right. I have no problem with that, but get out and vote. Make sure that you make your voice heard. I just think it's critically important. And along with that, again, my advice is stop watching the polls. Now, the media obsesses about these polls. The legacy media, I don't think they could function were it not for the polls. We got a new poll, the latest poll, and even Fox, even media outlets that I appreciate and I follow, the latest poll shows, and I thought, I just do not care. How do Americans send the message that we don't care about the polling? We're going to get out and vote. Doesn't matter what the polling says. Well, the polling, of course, just got blown to absolute hell. Were any of them right? I don't even know if any of them were right. Were any? So the polls were blown out of the water, as shown in the video that I shared with you, the reaction to Ann Seltzer's poll in Iowa, and Kamala Harris is going to win Iowa. No, she didn't. Trump won by like 17 points. I mean, that's not only missing it. That's not missing it by that much. It's missing it by a mile. So these people don't know what the hell they're doing. This is why I believe that a lot of these polls are meant to influence you. They're meant to get you to vote in a particular way. And so when the election is over, why is it that all of these pollsters have egg on their face? Because they failed in getting you to vote the way that they wanted you to vote. That's my own perspective. Whether or not that's the case, but you've got the same legacy media that a growing number of us do not trust, that's going out there working then, and then they get some institution then that's also behind some university generally, that's partnering with them. Well, what's going on in universities in the country right now? Left-wing mania. I mean, why would you put any credibility into any of these polls? That just confounds me. I just don't get it. And then what I will tell you this. For those of you, and Steve would be an example. Steve is a regular here. Is he on this morning? I don't know that he's on this morning, but I call him Steve Areno. Steve is a regular, and he watches a lot of this stuff just for the entertainment. And it's kind of the way I feel. You want to watch polls, do so, keeping in mind, especially I think the reaction now after the vote, and they're like, trying to explain why they were wrong and where they went wrong. And now that I think is entertaining, which is why I'm sharing it with you today. But honestly, my advice to you is do not trust these polls. The legacy media teaming up with universities, again, left-leaning or worse in some cases, teaming up with media, and so trying to give then some validity then to their polls. They're still wrong. Afterward, doesn't matter. They're still wrong. So you get somebody credible to join you, but you're still wrong. I mean, that would not be. I would not accept that personally. I think many of us kind of feel that way. Would you accept that personally? I just would not. And yet the media does all the time. I want to see some of what Jay, I agree with Jay. Near 70% voter turnout in South Dakota this year. Yeah, that was absolutely incredible. I think it was. And David makes a great point that these pollsters, sometimes what they want is you to not go vote. It's a great point. And it's one of the reasons why I've said, disregard the polls. Don't pay attention to the polls and go vote. And I don't know how you're voting. I'm still encouraging you to vote. I'm encouraging you to go on, make your voice heard. You've got local elections. South Dakota this year's a great example. We had some issues in South Dakota that I think would have really been harmful to our state. And I was so glad that voters got out and not only said no, but said, hell no. We are not doing this. We are not. And the left-wingers that are pushing a lot of this, folks like Rick Weiland, Dakotans for Health, and a number of these other groups. And I've received emails from a few. Rick Weiland was driving some of you nuts. He was driving me nuts too. And I tried not to talk about that on the air. I will talk with you as we're doing this, the fourth hour. I will visit with you a little bit more candidly sometimes than I will on the air. And maybe I don't even want to put it that way. I don't want to suggest that I'm not being truthful on the air. I am. And when I'm sharing an opinion on the air, but there are opinions that I don't share on the air that I'm more comfortable sharing with you during the fourth hour rather than putting them out for everybody to hear. You know what I mean? On Kello, is then I've got also, Kello is an advertising platform. It's really what we are. We are an advertising platform. And I encourage you, please, as you hear the businesses that support my show and support other shows that you enjoy on Kello, please support those businesses. Very, very much appreciated. But what Kello is an advertising platform. And here, there's no advertising involved. I have no advertiser of the fourth hour. If you know anybody who's interested, let me know. But I can share some of the opinions. Again, I'm still not going to puke up everything in my life to you. But I will share opinions with you here that I don't necessarily share on the air. So, but it's just absolutely incredible, these polls, and don't pay attention to them. This is why, as we talk about nearly 70% voter turnout in South Dakota, I'm just really, really thrilled to see that so many of our residents wanted to get out and make their voice heard. And there were a lot of things that for us to vote on. Jeff saying the day of JFK Democrats and pride in U.S. jobs, etc., has died in the Democrat Party. They're now the party of abortion, LGBTQ, and anti-white males. If they don't turn to JFK values, their party is dead. I kind of feel the same way. And a number of Democrats did too. I think that's why you saw Donald Trump winning so decisively. I mean, this really was a mandate. I mean, this is the most consequential presidential election that I have seen in my lifetime. I believe that was Donald Trump winning a second term and then pulling a Grover Cleveland, and they were not consecutive terms, but 4 years off and coming back. What a comeback story. I mean, we really have not talked much about that, but what an incredible comeback. And, I was explaining on the show this morning, there are some that they're in a hurry, and I get this. I mean, I know folks are tired and they're worn out with the crap that's been going on and, the lawfare that has been waged. I just thought that was incredibly great news that Jack Smith now is he is dropping the cases that he had against Trump. So those are the federal cases. And there was another story. Take a look at this. I want to share this one with you as we look ahead to the future for Donald Trump in the hush money case. The judge in Trump's hush money trial considers tossing the felony conviction after Donald Trump won. Let's take a look at this. So this is Juan Merchan, who we have talked about many times on the program before. And so CNN saying Trump's overwhelming election win will now further embolden his legal team to make sure that sentencing never happens. Let's see what else is going on. A lot of this is, I want to hope legal experts have already predicted Trump will not face hard time. So it'll be interesting to see. One former prosecutor, here we go, that Merchan doesn't have the stomach to imprison a former president or president-elect. Imagine what would happen in the country if you were to do that. If Judge Merchan were to say, okay, Donald Trump has won the election, and the media fought like hell, man. They did not want Donald Trump to win. That was very, very obvious. You got the media out there fighting, misrepresenting what's actual truth, misrepresenting things, doing pro-Kamala Harris stories, totally, and almost every story against Donald Trump was terrible. They were trashing him. And in the midst of all that, can you imagine if Juan Merchan were to sentence now Donald Trump to anything? I mean, even if you were to sentence him to 6 hours of community service, can you imagine what the reaction would be? I mean, I'm not in any way encouraging violence at all. At all. I'm not saying that anybody at any time, I'm not a fighter. I mean, I'm a fighter in the marketplace of ideas. But in terms of getting violent against somebody else, it's not who I am, never has been. So I'm not trying to encourage violence or threats of any kind. But can you imagine if Juan Merchan doesn't vacate all this crap? What what he might face in terms of threats and animosity and all of that? Wow. It would be incredible, I think. I don't think a lot of Americans would. Americans are pretty patient people, because God knows the last 4 years of the Biden administration have been a huge test of our patience, among other things. So we're an incredibly patient people. But I just can't imagine that he would want to put himself, his family in harm's way. So we'll see what happens. I'm not making any predictions because, I mean, in this bizarro world, you just can't predict it. Which is why I laugh at this Alan Lichtman and these pollsters who are just floored. But the model showed Kamala Harris victory. This is just too rich. Let's see what else is on your mind. I love your comments. Let's go back to Jeff again. They're all in scramble mode to try to prevent Trump going after Joe, Hunter, and the hundreds of Hollywood liberals There can be no uniting on January 20th if the charges weren't dismissed. David, I kind of agree with you. If you're afraid of disinformation or misinformation, do not listen to the current government. Isn't that unfortunate? I'm not disagreeing with David, but isn't that unfortunate that you and I, looking at the mess that our country has become, and how can you trust the federal government? And I think this is going to be one of the challenges of Donald Trump. I really want to give him some time. I know everybody's in a hurry, and there were a few callers this morning. They want, it's like you want to be taught the knowledge of the world while standing on one foot, that old story. And I think we've kind of got some folks out there who are feeling that way right now. I just want to encourage you to be patient. I'm just willing to be patient. Donald Trump has not even taken office yet. He's the president-elect. So he's not taken the oath of office. His authorities are limited. As the president-elect, he does have, there are things that he can do. And I had some great callers this morning saying, look already, that the things Donald Trump has been saying he would do and the way that people are reacting to him. Look at the reaction on Wall Street. I was just blown away by that. You had on Wednesday one of the biggest days on Wall Street we've ever seen. It was just huge. You have Tesla going through the roof. Their shares were up like 12% or something. So it just absolutely incredible. The reaction. And I think as this administration gets going, I really want to remind you that the Donald Trump taking office today is not the Donald Trump who took office when he first became president. He's a lot more knowledgeable. He's aware more than anybody, I think. Excuse me. Oh, sorry about that. He is acutely aware of what the Democrats would do and what the establishment would do. It's not even just the Democrats. It's the Washington establishment. And what the Washington establishment, they must have been scared to death that Trump was going to win, because they did everything they could to try to stop him. And you and I still said, forget this. He's the guy. He's the one. It's just absolutely incredible. So please be patient. Give Donald Trump a little bit of time. He's not even in office yet. I think, again, we're already seeing good things happen as a result of the election this week. I think we're going to see a lot more of those good things happen. But there's some, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, some folks are just pessimists and they're impatient. And so they're pessimistic. They're looking at the bad things. I'm looking at the good. I am, seriously, after this election, you and I should be filled with hope and optimism that for the first time in a number of years, we're heading in the right direction. More so, and I think the second Donald Trump term is going to be far, far different from his first term. He's already, his camp, or the folks' transition team is already taking a look at who's going to fill the cabinet positions and so on. So based on what I'm seeing about that, I find that very uplifting. And this will be a different Donald Trump. And it'll be amazing. And now keep in mind, he will not be running for re-election. He cannot run for re-election. So he has got nothing to lose. Now, Donald Trump has always been that kind of guy anyway, that he doesn't care. I mean, financially, he's set. So, but he is not going to be running for another term in office. So he is literally free to do what he thinks is right and what's in the best interest of the country. And I think we saw this on election night when early yesterday morning, Donald Trump was, this was not the same Donald Trump who was on the campaign trail. This is not the same Donald Trump who got hauled in front of Judge Juan Merchan. He's talking about forgiveness, and that he's not going to go after his political enemies. And I really think if you want to see an America where folks stop, persecuting their political enemies, you've got to model that behavior. I really believe that. You got to model that behavior. I'm not saying not going after people who obviously broke the law. If there are those who, and it's clear, they obviously broke the law, you go out, you make the case. I'm not suggesting that folks should get away with lawlessness. However, having a grudge, I mean, if anybody's got a grudge against the media, against the Democrats, it would be Donald Trump. And to hear him speak as he did yesterday morning about forgiveness and moving forward and his gratitude, this is not the Donald Trump that we saw first become president of the United States. And that sense of forgiveness, I think a lot of us should keep that in mind. Moving forward, again, I'm not excusing lawlessness, make no mistake. I'm not talking about those who have violated the law, and if it's proven that there were dirty tricks that were underfoot and so on, things that were going on, I'm all in favor of going after those folks and, making the case to a jury and letting them decide. But I just think this can be a unifying election if we allow it to be. If we allow it to be. And it's one of the reasons I'm trying very hard during the program. I'm trying very hard not to rub people's face in the laws, because I'm sure there are those who voted for Kamala Harris, maybe voted for some of the other things that were defeated, so on. There was a lot on the South Dakota ballot. So I really don't want to rub people's faces in their loss, but I must tell you that I do take a certain amount of pleasure at watching the meltdowns that are going on, on the late night talk shows. And though the late night television has been irrelevant to me in I don't know how long, easily probably going on almost 20 years since I gave a rip, easily 10 years, 10 to 15 years that I have just not cared. So some of those meltdowns, I will say, I take a perverse pleasure in some of those meltdowns. I hope you do too. All right, that's it for today. I'm going to leave it there. I want to thank you so much for being here. Hit that like button if you would while you've got the opportunity, and I hope to see you back here tomorrow. In fact, it's a requirement, if I haven't said that already. So I hope to see you again tomorrow. You take care. Have a great Thursday. See you again soon. Tell your friends too.